that's right, you're not dreaming. Nightmare on Elm Street turns 40 years old this year. That's right, Freddy is a quadragenarian. Happy birthday, my old chum. And while Nightmare on Elm Street films maybe don't have the brutality of the Friday the 13th series, or the sheer body count, or even film count, of the Halloween films, A Nightmare on Elm Street always stood out because of how unique and creative the kills were, thanks to that dream world setting. And after seeing some of these kills, you may never sleep again. Buckle up, bitch! It's my top 10 Nightmare on Elm Street kills.
Never sleep again.
Starting with probably my most controversial pick, and probably the reason why people would switch off this video. It's a very divisive kill from A Nightmare on Elm Street 5 Dream Child, which isn't a great film in general, but there are some decent kills, and I really like this one for certain reasons. But I'm not going to pretend it's great, and I promise there's nothing else that goofy on this list. But, as you'll learn, Freddy has a penchant for killing people in ironic ways, so Mark is a comic book fan. I mean, say no more, he deserves to die, we hate those people. But Mark gets sucked into a comic that's all black and white, he's the only thing in colour, which is already a pretty interesting visual, and I wish I could say it got better from there. But it gets worse first. For example, some studio exec obviously was like, kids love skateboarding, put Freddy on a skateboard. Because that's the only way I can rationalise that. And then, Mark becomes his comic book alter ego, some sort of weird knockoff of the Punisher. And Freddy becomes...
It's Super Freddy!
Super Freddy. Why is this on my list again? Why it's on my list is because I like when Freddy becomes shreddy and just tears the 2D paper Mark to bits and all that imagined violence.
Told ya! Comic books was bad for ya!
And come on, we've seen so much blood and violence in this series already. That something a bit different like that looks brutal, that isn't, in an interesting visual way, is something I like, especially when you watch the colours drain out of it. It's just kind of good to look at. I just love the style of this kill. Not necessarily the most brutal or terrifying kill, but certainly a visual and interesting one that, if nothing else, will make you say, huh, that girl is really lucky she grabbed that guy from Aha's hand in the Take On Me video instead of Freddy Krueger's. Part 4, The Dream Master, has its odd moments. I mean, chief among them is the fact that Freddy is revived by a dog peeing on his body. I can't explain that anymore. But it also feels like the film that definitively showed us the more comedic side of Freddy Krueger, which would be confirmed by this first kill in the film, and here's an example of when it actually worked. And I should say, A Nightmare on Elm Street, as far as slasher franchises go, is a lot less leery than some of the other offenders, the worst offender probably being Friday the 13th, but this kill is the exception. Joey is just a normal teenage boy hanging out in his bed with pictures of hot girls on the wall, like, whoa! Babe alert! Whoa! Ugh. I wouldn't mind sharing a bed with her. oh, poor choice of words.
Wait! How's this for a wet dream?
A film that dragged us into the charismatic Killer Krueger era for better or worse, this kill actually managed to strike a good balance between funny, frightening, and cool, and also pay homage to another kill on the list that we'll get to soon. I mean, if nothing else, it serves as a good reminder that maybe you shouldn't meet the girl of your dreams, because that girl could be Freddy Krueger. I don't think it was trying to remind us that. That is actually very specific when I say it out loud. Hungry for more? Well, Chef Freddy has got you covered, and hey, I like when Freddy can have a little bit of fun. I mean, not too much fun, but look at him there dressed as a chef. Adorable.
Bon appetit!
Someone who doesn't find that as fun, though, is our character of Greta in Part 5, who is a model, and because of that has to watch what she eats, and she's also kind of controlled by her mother, something that Freddy takes advantage of, as at the family dinner table, he has the mother belittle her non-stop, and force feeds her, to the point of her nearly exploding. It's a really disgusting visual.
Second helping!
Don't talk with your mouth full, dear.
And then, to make matters worse, he starts feeding parts of Greta to Greta.
You are what you eat!
Imagine why the MPAA apparently cut a lot of this scene, which is a shame, but it means that we don't see her actual death. Instead, we kind of see her choking at the family dinner table, and then Alice sees the food in the fridge just rot, and as Greta tries to claw her way free, Freddy drags her to her doom. I also love the way this scene is shot. It actually looks more like a nightmare than maybe any of the scenes in the movies without being too extreme or over the top. Just the close-ups of people laughing insanely or the lighting and colours. It just feels nightmarish. I love it. Good eating. Aside from straight up lying to you about being the last film, Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare just isn't a very good movie. But more egregious, it doesn't have many good kills either. But it does have one that I enjoy. We follow a teen called Carlos who is deaf in one ear, and if you've been paying attention to the video at this point, you can probably see where that's going. I should also say this late in the series as well, Freddy Krueger is basically now just Bugs Bunny. So he makes Carlos's hearing super sensitive, so sensitive, he can hear a pin drop. Oh, this is going to be bad. Oh, it wasn't that bad. See, do you see what I mean now when I say he's kind of like Bugs Bunny at this point? And even the pins weren't that bad, and then Freddy makes it even worse. He brings out a chalkboard, which gets bigger and bigger. I mean, Freddy is just milking the hell out of this. Let's be honest though, nails on a chalkboard is bad. Claws on a chalkboard? That's just sadistic as hell, and naturally it goes about as well as you'd expect for Carlos. I honestly think most of us would have that reaction to hearing claws on a chalkboard, but I digress.
Nice hearing from you, Carlos.
This might be the most fun Freddy has ever had with a kill, and I just enjoy that. But I also feel like of all the kind of over-the-top comedic kills, this one still has that kind of sadistic layer of irony to it that actually does work. And if you're not happy that I picked this kill, just be glad I didn't put the Power Glove death on this list.
Get out of here now!
Yes, by now you're probably guessing that a lot of Freddy's kills are basically Homer Simpson's punishment in hell from The Simpsons.
So you like donuts, eh? Have all the donuts in the world!
And there's certainly a lot of that in the third entry, Dream Warriors, which is also one of the best entries in the whole series, but there's a lot of those type of punishments for the unfortunate sleepless patients of the psychiatric ward, one of whom is Taryn, a recovering drug addict, who, in Dreamworld, is a badass biker chick with switchblades. Unfortunately for her, Freddy has some new weaponry in Dreamworld as well.
Let's get high.
Just a really frightening and cool visual. I mean, less cool for Taryn because he does stab her, inject her, and force her to overdose. So, you know, that's not cool. I do really like this death though because of how vicious and brutal it is to a character that I feel like the movie is really trying to get behind, and it makes it all the more impactful when she is killed. And I also am just a sucker whenever they change the kind of look and feel of the glove. I mean, in the second one the glove just burst straight out of Jesse's hand, but that film is kind of a bit odd and isn't really sticking with a lot of the rules the franchise would set up. I mean, it's not the only time, that, by the way, in case you're wondering, that Freddy has had different attachments on his gloves. For example, in A Wet Dream on Elm Street, he's got different attachments to his glove. They're, don't ask how I know that. Yeah, don't check my search history. Just no further question. Moving on. Next kill. If you think that's filthy, get ready for this next kill because it's just plain disgusting. In part 4 of the Dream Master, we follow a character called Debbie, who's in shape. She takes care of herself, and yeah, vanity and health isn't really something that Freddy seems to cherish. And then it gets straight up John Carpenter, David Cronenberg in here, when he pushes the weights down that she's lifting and just snaps her elbows.
No pain, no gain.
Yeah, believe it or not, that's actually the normal part, because then it gets very Cronenberg and think less The Fly and more The Cockroach. As insect limbs start growing out of her and she starts sticking to the floor, tearing chunks of herself away in absolute agony, and it's revealed she's actually in a roach motel, and in her full cockroach form, Freddy has just enough time to bust a one-liner.
You can check in, but you can't check out.
And then squash her like a bug. Or cockroach. Are those the same thing? I don't know, but it doesn't matter. She's goo now. She's goo. That's all that matters. She's goo. Okay, I've talked creative, I've talked violent. This is one I just find incredibly entertaining. It's probably the most surface level of the ironic punishments for the series, and that's really saying something. Again, from Part 3 Dream Warriors, Jennifer is an aspiring TV star. That's all the development you need. But thankfully, Freddy is here to give her her big break.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. Welcome to prime time, bitch.
That is so brutal and quick, it's just entertaining. And there's so many things I like about it. Freddy's little heady just popping up like a turtle, boop! And then he's got these crazy arms and that TV body like a cyborg Teletubby. It's awesome! It's also the first time Freddy uses bitch in the movies, which become a fixture of the character to the point of parody. And while it's quite divisive among fans, certainly, this time, it worked. Of course, at some point we were going to talk about the original film. And for that we go to one of the most memorable deaths in the film, and arguably, one of the most iconic deaths in horror history. We mentioned before how Friday the 13th has a future star in its midst getting killed by its killer in the form of Kevin Bacon. And in this film, we have a similar thing, in that we also have a future A-lister getting butchered in bed. In this case though, it's Johnny Depp, who plays Glenn, Nancy's love interest. And at first it seems like things might go okay for Glenn. He gets pulled down through the bed and, hey, Freddy's even good enough to take his TV and sound system with him. What a good guy, I'm sure he might need them. But unfortunately though, soon Glenn is going to come back like you've never seen him before. Liquid form. Yes, Glenn, or whatever is left of him, and henceforth to be known as Glenn Minade, defies gravity and shoots out of the bed with monstrous force in a real disgusting and vile scene that really has to be seen to be believed. I mean, even Stanley Kubrick would blush at the amount of blood coming out of that bed. I don't think I can say it any better than the paramedics who said,
"You won't need a stretcher up there, you need a mop."
Hey, I might know a guy for that.
Damn little shits.
What'd you call me? Huh?
Not your friend.
Another one from the awesome third entry. Philip likes puppets. I mean, I think he's got some near his bed, I guess. But also, he definitely is a sleepwalker. Although this time around, he's not really sleepwalking. It's Freddy pulling the strings. And by strings, I mean veins. Freddy is pulling on his veins. That is so freaking gross. So Freddy pulls his strings and makes him walk to the top of the tower of the psychiatric ward and cuts his strings. What can I say? This is one of the most creative and grisly deaths in the whole series, and it absolutely rocks. And after an uneven second entry that felt a bit inconsistent with what we knew about Freddy, the third one needed to remind us what we were dealing with. An absolute terror that will haunt your dreams, and someone you were right to be afraid of. How do you establish a slasher villain that attacks you in your dreams? Setting up a killer in any horror film is vital. But for a supernatural character like Freddy, where we're not dealing with the normal rules, it's even more so. With the first death in the series, Tina, we immediately got an iconic and memorable death and a slasher villain to be reckoned with. Because we weren't really sure what we were dealing with at first. In fact, the audience is kind of given a misguided sense of comfort that Tina might actually be asleep. And if she's asleep, what's the worst that can happen? The worst can happen.
Please, God.
This is God.
Seeing the distress she has in her dream is nothing compared to the distress her body is enduring, though, as we see her get ripped to shreds by an invisible force. Dragged impossibly up a wall and along a ceiling, leaving a bloody trail behind her as she screams in terror and for help from her boyfriend, Rod. And just as the audience gets to her breaking point, she falls back to earth, landing on the bed, leaving a splattered, bloody mess of a carcass. A scene incredibly disturbing for the shrieks of terror and just watching the impossible horror that reminded us that we have not met a killer like Freddy before. And just as you're ready to move on, then she shows up in a body bag and calls Nancy out, and at that point most of us just said, nope, I'm done. Freddy has always had a unique position among the slashers in that he walks the line between dream and reality, and that allows for a lot of terror and originality. And this first kill in the whole series might be the best example of it, and was just such a great way of establishing it in a way that was just so creative and terrifying. And it's rightfully seen as one of the most iconic deaths in film history. And they even paid homage to it themselves in New Nightmare, and none of us complained, because it's just that amazing. And those are my top 10 Nightmare and Elm Street kills. Let me know in the comments below if there's ones you agree with, disagree with. Let me know what you think of my list, as there's ones you would have put in that I didn't put on my list. And remember, 1, 2, Tommy's coming for you. 3, 4, subscribe for more. 5, 6, give me likes and clicks. 7, 8, go and tell a mate. 9, 10, never sleep again. Oh, happy Halloween!